Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Barrio Podcast, presented by Ruidosa Art Collective. It is I, your friendly neighborhood Ruidosa member, Kevin Guzman, and I am here with JaxWillBeJax. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. A little tired, not gonna lie, but what great artist isn't?
So they're so real.
Right? So we're having this interview. Thank you very much for opening up your space. You have that magnificent apartment. I've been here multiple times. Every time I come in here, I'm like, damn, I wish I lived here. But besides having great taste in decor, how do you define yourself, my dear?
How do I define myself?
Yeah, because you are an artist, right? But you're a writer, you're a bassist, you're a filmmaker, you are a lot of things. So how can you define yourself?
I would say the easiest way to put it is that I'm a multidisciplinary musician turned filmmaker. I still do both things in many different ways. And being a musician is a lot of different things, right? You're writing, you're playing, I play different instruments too, and I play in bands, I make my own stuff. And the same with filmmaking. Filmmaking is writing, producing, sometimes you're doing PA work or doing lighting somewhere. And so, yeah, I live in both worlds.
That's amazing. As someone who is Latino, Latina, Latinx, whichever title you prefer, I call myself, Ruidosa really, but what do you think of your Latinidad? And how does that influence your writing, your work in general?
I feel like my Latinidad both gives me the motivation and drive to create work. And it also provides like a unique lens as to how to go about creating work. So what I mean by that is, at least my Latinidad, everybody's Latinidad is different, right?
Yeah, we are not a monolith, ladies and gentlemen. We're not one thing.
Yeah.
We are multiple things. So with that being said, let's define ourselves a little bit. I am Mexican-American. I call myself a Chicano because my parents are from Mexico, but I was born here in the U.S. What about you?
I'm Guatemalan American. Children of immigrants.
Wonderful, wonderful. You're in great company then.
Yeah.
So then, as a child of an immigrant, how was growing up here in the U.S., but still having these parents that are, lack for the better word, non-American? Like, they don't know the culture here. They don't really know what's going on because most of their life they were spent in Guatemala, right? No, is that what you said? No.
Yeah, Guatemala.
Yeah, sorry.
They probably spend more time here now, but yeah.
Okay. How was it growing up then?
Growing up, children of immigrants was children of Guatemalan immigrants too, right? It was cool. Like, I'm so grateful for the upbringing that I've had and the way in which I am experienced in being a part of two different worlds, you know? As an artist, as a children of immigrants, it was challenging, really challenging at first, but it also trains you to be comfortable with not belonging fully to anything, really, you know? So, like...
Interesting.
Yeah, so... let's see. Growing up, it was like, home is Guatemala, school is the United States, and you're constantly going back and forth. But I was really lucky because I went to school with mostly other children of immigrants from all different countries. That's just like one of the beautiful things about growing up in Chicago. And in the north side, the place where I grew up, there was a lot of Polish immigrants. So it was like 40% Latinos, 50% Polish immigrants, and then that other piece of the pie was everybody else. So like Cambodian, Vietnamese, I'm trying to think of other countries. We had African, we had, it's just like all kinds of different countries. And Yeah, it was great. And what was weird actually was moving away from Chicago and not being around children of immigrants. And that was like
Really? Tell me more about
weird.
that.
Yeah, so meeting people who have had families here for generations and generations is a whole different culture. It's like consumerism's really important. Brands are really important, which like that's in everything, but it was like extra important to like someone's identity when I like moved to Evanston and went to school there. And growing up, it was more about like, what's your family's culture? What do you guys eat? Like, when's the last time you were in your home country? How are your parents? Like, I don't know. And there was like this, it was like a tolerance, but it was beyond a tolerance. It was like a deep acknowledgement that we're all from, our families are all from somewhere else. So,
That's interesting because I've also grown up with children of immigrants because I grew up outside the city of Chicago. I grew up in Berwyn. I was born in the city of Chicago, spent a lot of time over here, but really I was raised outside of it. But I was raised in an area that was very high in Latinos. So everyone around me was, first generation, second generation, maybe very rarely a couple third generation of children of immigrants, but everybody said knowledge that they were children of immigrants, right? So when I visit like areas outside of Chicago, outside of like our bubble that are less multicultural, you really see a big difference, don't you? Like a big difference of, I gotta have my brand of Dr. Pepper, or if I don't, I'm just gonna look bad. Or I got to go get my Starbucks because I possibly can't make coffee at home, right? Consumerism is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And like as a child of immigrants, like I hate spending money.
Yeah.
Spending money, you know?
That's like in the culture for sure.
And then, like when I do spend money, it's because either I really need it or it's going to make me really happy. Like I bought a Spider-Man jacket earlier this year, and my mom hates that jacket. She's like, "That's so dumb. Why would you have that and this and that?" And I'm like, whatever. I put it on, I feel great. I feel fantastic, you know. And then it's on brand for me, right? Because I'm a giant nerd and I love these things. But the price tag on it, kind of broke my heart a little bit. But yeah, there is a big difference, right? There is a big definition there. How, as a child of immigrants, did you assimilate yourself into American culture?
I don't know.
How have you? Because a lot of people say they don't.
I think it's hard to live here your whole life and not be assimilated to the culture, or the culture become a part of you. I would not go back to Guatemala and be like, I'm not assimilated to the United States. That would be so wrong. So I don't know if I was fully conscious of that process, but I know that, I'm American. And so you become where you're from in some ways. Like nobody's unaffected by their environment. So also like growing up, I was really into rock music. I still am, like total rockera. And so in the Latino spaces that I would be in, sometimes they'd be like, oh, that's super white. Like, don't be American like that. Don't listen to rock, da 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 da. Which like, this is why like I big love to my Mexicano friends, because they're also rockeros, but it's like really ingrained in Mexican culture. And so it would be like the rockeros that were like, we don't give a fuck, like we're white, I don't give a fuck, like. So there was a bit of that, right? Like, oh, you're super white for liking rock music, da da da, and then you find your community and you're fine. But That's like one place where I'm like, oh, was that assimilating? Because I listened to Good Charlotte and Simple Plan. Like, I don't know.
I mean, kind of. My sister's the one who introduced me to my favorite band, was the Strokes. She put on Is This It and fell in love from then on. But I still love my culture, right? You still love that. For me, mariachi music, dorayense, just dancing around to, just acting the fool, but still expressing yourself, right? So then here's my next question for you. How has that realization of how you've changed influenced your art?
How I've changed, like, changed in what way?
Changed throughout the years. So I think when we're in high school, right, we were really discovering who we are, what we like, what we don't like. And then when we do get into college or adulthood, we get those small shavings, right, of what we're becoming. And then we go into more in detail, right? So how have you yourself changed through those years?
Oh, that's like yeah.
Because I'm going to talk about a big project here, but I want to save it till the end.
Okay, for sure. So let's see, ways in which I've changed over the years and the way that that's affected my artistry and creativity. I think, I would say as an artist, I do like conceptual work. So every time I go into a project, I'm creating a world. So I don't just create music. There's like the last album I did music and poetry, and it was like all about self-love and that process of like liking yourself more. And so this time, I'm talking a lot about like nostalgia, and I won't get that into it. I'll save it. But I think that when it comes to changes, what I'm trying to do with my art is tease something out. So like, it's like I have this big question and I'm like trying to get to the answer. And so it is about change. It's about, what is it about really? I think it's about trying to make sense of the changes. Yeah. And like, that's like what affects my art. So like something will happen and then in 3 years, I'll like create something to try to like unwind the tangled bits in my head
and process it, right?
Yeah, it's like
it's a good processing thing to do. Writing, music, art in general, right? Like when I wrote that play that I mentioned earlier, I wrote that after a heartbreak, and with that, it took me a little bit of time to process that heartbreak, but now I have this great piece of art while being able to process my feelings, and now that I'm still working on that, or now a new project based on that, now all these things have happened between then, those changes, more things to process, but now this art piece has become stronger because of it, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, next big thing I wanted to talk about is you're multi-talented. You do a lot of stuff. But what's your favorite thing to do? Is it the music? Is it the writing? Is it being a filmmaker? Is it acting? Because you are an actress. You are a big part of your project here. Which, spoilers, is called Andromeda, which we'll get to the title in a second. But what is that? Sorry, I lost my original thought there.
My favorite thing?
Yeah, what's your favorite thing to do?
I think my favorite thing to do is like imagine and like conceptualize something new.
That is a great answer.
So it takes place in both places, but it's like the songwriting, the writing for the screen, and like imagining this like, wow, this would be so cool, and let's like draft it all out, and that part of it is my favorite.
That's a great answer, because I feel like people forget how to use their imaginations as they get older.
True.
And
I've heard of that.
yeah, we've all seen the people who are like super angry all the time and just grumpy and think only things have to happen a certain way. And I'm like, come on, man, imagine yourself to do this a little bit better or in a different thing. Or what happens if instead of thinking the absolute worst, we can imagine something a little bit better, right? Because I've been using my imagination all my fucking life, and I can't not think about not using it, you know? And I feel like a lot of people just don't. And now my next question to you is, why do you think so?
Why do I think people's imaginations are like limited as they get older? Well, I believe that there's a lot. There needs to be a lot in place for a human being to access play. So children need to be taken care of by their caretakers. They need to be fed, housed. All of this other stuff needs to be put in place for people to feel free to access that place without starving and dying and being, you know. So, also, like, you need to prioritize it. So, like, when you get older, you have more responsibilities, and sometimes people will take that as the reason to not be more imaginative or carve time out to be creative, and that makes a lot of sense. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's great to take on responsibilities and do the best you can on that front. But yeah, like for the folks that are able to continue being creative and have imagination and play with that, it's because you've prioritized it, you know, like you've made sure that you're fed and that you're housed and that you have work, and that part of that energy like goes into like, I get to write now. I get to sit down and like write my ideas and write my songs and record them. And like, yeah, I think as an adult, you have to fight for your creativity. And as a kid, you don't.
That's a great answer, first of all. But you bring out a lot of good points. You know, there does have to be some type of structural underbacking that allows you to have that playtime, right? That you don't have to think about where your next meal is going to come from. You don't have to think about the bills. You don't have to think about, am I going to have a safe place to sleep tonight? If you have those structures already in place, it's a lot easier to not just use your imagination, but start imagining bigger, brighter, and bigger things, right?
I think there's like another theory too, where like instead of it just being creative when you have all this space, you can be creative about the things you have to do. Like you can be creative within the responsibilities. Like, how can we be creative about getting my needs met? You know, like that's another way to be creative.
Yeah, that's another great viewpoint too.
Yeah. So, but it's like you're saying, like imagining a better future, or imagining something better, or imagining something worse. Sometimes helpful. But
I mean, fear does play a good part of it, right? Because if there's one thing I'm grateful for, it's always going to be my parents having that tenacity to be like, all right, I'm in this new place. I have some supports here and there, but I'm essentially alone. Let's sacrifice a little bit of that imaginative play so we can survive, have my kids be able to survive, and then let them have that time to basically imagine, right? When I was a kid, my parents would tell me this all the time. You échale ganas, because ponte los pilas, because if you don't, you're going to be working like your dad outside in the cold all the time for...
They would say that to you?
Not all the time. It's kind of the thing, right? And that, like, as a kid, that kind of scares you. You don't want to work hard like that all the time. But then as I gotten older, and I've realized, yeah, let's think of ourselves something bigger, because we can be. They've done the legwork essentially to give me this opportunity to become bigger, which thankfully I have. I've gone to college. I've gotten degrees. I'm starting a new career this year. It's a lot of work. I'm still working on it now. It's a pain in the ass, but now I could think and do and be bigger than them, right? I've started Ruidosa. I'm writing. I picked up photography earlier, and that's a talent I never knew I had. But once I picked up a camera and started shooting some stuff, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. This is fun. And now I want to reflect this back to you. Like, when did you realize that you can be creative like this? When you have that agency?
Oh no. I mean, whoa. Yeah. So creativity, it was something that creativity was something that people often talked. Sorry, let me back up.
When I was take your time to gather your thoughts. These are big questions.
When I was a kid, that's what I would be celebrated for the most. They'd be like, "Oh, Jax, you're so creative! Like, wow, you just made this like innovative thing." Meh. And when I had like school projects, I would go above and beyond and like create like things that moved, and like I was just so, I mean, there's like so many thoughts in my head about this, but essentially, yeah, like even though I was like good at school and bright and other things that I didn't care about, like creativity was something where like, wow, you're so imaginative, like you're so creative. And so I think I made it a part of my identity really early on and was like, oh, okay, this is something that people like and that I like. So it matched. Yeah.
That's that's interesting because that's the opposite of what I had. I was creative, right, or wanted to be creative, but it didn't really get much support in that or like praise for it.
Oh, really?
I was given praise for like, oh, great job, the job is really cool, but I was given more praise for doing well academically, for getting the A, for studying, for improving my spelling, whatever it is, getting out of ESL. That was a big celebratory moment, right? Because that just means you're doing better.
Yeah.
And I didn't give myself the agency to be creative until like years later into college, where I'm like, I got a pretty good handle on the academic thing. Let's think outside the box more. Let's become more creative. Let's give myself a turn of the phrase, right?
Was it because what was it about college that made you like be like, yeah, I can be creative now? Like, what was that turning point?
So that's interesting because your big project, Andromeda, is about first generation immigrant, right? She has gone to college on her own. She's at this new place, experiencing new things, and she's kind of getting lost in the sauce a little bit, right? And I'll give you a second to define your project a little bit more. But for me, when you first talked about it to me, when I first heard about it, I'm like, oh, this is amazing, because this is exactly what I was going through. My college career is basically like ups and downs, a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. And those peaks are high, but those valleys are deep and low too. So to answer your question, it took a lot of reinsurance for me to myself to give myself that permission to be creative. And it took a little bit of outside pushing too. Like I can't give enough praise to my college professor who was like, oh, Mr. Guzman, you're just taking political science philosophy classes. Take this creative writing class. I'm like, why? Well, A, you need another English class, and then B, you're writing too stiffly. You're writing like a robot. I need you to write a little bit more smoothly. And at first, I didn't really get that. Right? At first, I'm like, I'm just giving you what you want. Isn't this what you always wanted? And this and that. And I'm like, this is kind of stupid, but you know what? he was right the first time. Let's give it a try. So I gave it a try, and it created a whole new world for me, right?
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
The
Right?
fact that it came from a professor that wasn't in the creative arts.
No, he was a political science professor,
Insane.
head of the political science department,
Wow.
and it's the small little serendipity moments, where you don't really expect that to come from there,
Mm-hmm.
but it did, and when it did, it hit hard.
So you felt like you really needed that outlet.
At that point in time, yeah. At that point in time, yeah. Because for me, I went to college right straight out of high school. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for it academically, and I wasn't really ready for it, like, mature-wise. I just thought of it as high school part 2, but in reality, it wasn't. You're an adult now. You're in the real world. You're got more responsibilities. Yeah, you got more freedoms, but that just means you have more time to lose. And I didn't really get that. I didn't get that the first time. So flash forward about a year and a half later, I'm failing a lot of classes. Classes I'm doing really well in, and they're like, well, you could keep going here, but you're gonna owe us about 10 grand, and this is back when the Illinois MAP grant wasn't fully funded, so I lost a lot of my scholarships there. So they're like, yeah, you keep going here. And I was talking to my professor, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I know I want to go to college. I know I want to graduate. I know I can graduate. It's just going to take me more time, this and that. And he's like, go to community college. I'm like, what? Yeah, go to community college. Go there, grow up a bit, come back. And that really blew my mind because I didn't know that was an option, right? So then I took it. I did it. I went to my community college. I didn't want to go there in general because, again, I thought it was high school part 2. And it kind of is if you decide to make it that way. And that's a lot of things, too. It's a lot of my energy. What am I going to put into it, right?
So real. Yeah.
Going back into the creative process, right? Yes. What are you putting into this thing that's going to make it great? And at that point in time, I was putting some stuff into it, but I wasn't putting my whole heart into it. And then when I did, graduated about a year and a half later, because I did some summer school stuff. And then once I graduated, went straight back to my college. Straight went back to university. Was there for another year and a half. Graduated when the pandemic started. I know, crazy, isn't it? But I still graduated. Right? I still graduated. I took some time off from school for a bit. Worked here and there. It sucked. It sucked a lot. But with that experience, I then grew more into teaching, and that became its own thing. And now I'm a teacher, guys. And I'm still working on the certificate. Now I'm getting my master's in teaching.
Holy shit.
I know, right?
Well, you're getting your master's?
Yeah, getting a master's. I got...
Let's fucking go.
Yeah, debating about going for the 4th one, but we'll see.
Hey, we have plenty of time.
Exactly. But this is an interview about me. It's about you.
Sorry, I'm just like, no, actually, I'm asking because in the process of writing this story, there was a lot of stories that I got about the first generation college experience. And this one where it's like, I went there, I wasn't totally prepared. I stepped back and then I went back, and like this, like almost like teeter-totter towards getting your degree is so common. I mean, we know this, right? It's super common in the community. It's common, but there's like this thread of like, you should be ashamed to some people, maybe not for you. Hopefully you had more reassurance, but like some people gain a lot of shame around the like, I went and then I took some time off and then I went back and like, oh my gosh, now I'm 26 and I got my degree and I'm behind everybody else. And like, and that's a part of the point of writing about this topic is to expose that the college experience isn't like the like, oh my God, we're at a frat party, we're having so much fun. Like, that they show in the movies and TV, like that's the common college experience that you'll see like in popular media. And I feel like in the community, like we hear these stories, but the high schoolers that are about to go into college have no idea. They like don't know that there's a huge chance that it's not gonna be, you know, like in the movies or it's still a beautiful, transformative process, whether you finish at 21 or 26. Like, the journey is fascinating and it's like a part of the community and we should be talking about it. Like,
yes. So let's talk about it. Andromeda. This is a great series. I've read the script. I was in the background of one of the shots. I was an extra.
That's right. You are one of our ragers. One of our party ragers.
I completely forgot that's what I was.
Yeah, you're like in the short episode.
So, am I in the first episode?
Yeah,
no, I'm so excited now.
You look awesome.
So, tell me about Andromeda. What is it about, first of all? And then how did you get into writing it?
So Andromeda is about a homesick first generation college student that gets trapped in an alternate dimension. Basically, yeah, that's the
that's such a synopsis, man. Because you're like, oh, first generation, that's what I am. What, in a world, just trapped in a different dimensional world? What? That sounds amazing. Tell me more.
So, how I got to writing it, actually just came to me. I remember the day it happened. I was like working at I was working at the Chicago Cultural Center late night. I had these like 12-hour shifts there. I was an event coordinator and it had to be like, I don't know, a corporate event, wedding, something. It was late. And I'm like, you know what would be so cool? And the first thing that came to me was this alternate universe because I was really into like, you know, like the Upside Down and Stranger Things or like alternate dimensions and like all that stuff, right? Like WandaVision, how there's like this like alternate world that's not really real. And so I was like playing around with these stories, ideas as like a writer. And then I don't remember where the lo-fi girl thing came up, but I got to a place where I was like, what's the backstory to the lo-fi girl? Like, what if she was a first gen student and she actually hates where she's at? Which is what happened to me. That was my experience. Is I was at this like prestigious university and was having the worst time of my life while everyone around me was like, this is amazing. This is going to be the best 4 years of your life. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? You know? So I'm like, look, yeah, I listened to a lot of lo-fi music at that time. And I was like, what if this person was from, you know, what if she was a children of immigrants? Like, what would her room look like? And, yeah, like there was a lot of things about my college experience that felt like I was in a whole new world.
Well, that's kind of goes into my next question. Tell me about your college experience, because you have this concept of the lo-fi girl, which the girl with the green sweater. For those who don't know, to have lo-fi music on. You have this concept of her. She's a child of an immigrant. What is that influence you're putting into it? Like what part of that college experience did you put into this character?
Yeah. So there's some similarities and some differences between me and this character, but the similarities are that we're having a really bad time.
I feel like that's an experience a lot of first gen students have, right? Like they're so excited. All of senior year last year, it's their final year of high school. They've worked so hard to get into these schools, prestigious or not. It takes a lot of work to get into them, a lot of paperwork, a lot of headaches, late nights, maybe crying in the bathroom. I don't know.
Oh, yes. Erica Sanchez said it first.
There you go. So, having that experience and now being able to talk about it in a way that is, first of all, really relatable, right? Again, I'm talking about your script. You're in spoilers for the first episode, right? We're in the scene. I want to specifically talk about this scene of the lo-fi girl coming into this party. She's coming home, essentially, right?
Oh yeah, she's coming back.
She's coming back home
college.
from college. She's experiencing all these cool things at college, right? But now she's back home where college isn't viewed as highly. And they're like, oh, it's this thing that you're doing. I guess that's cool. Maybe it is for you, but for me, it's a waste of time. How did that perspective get into there? Into the scripts?
I mean, yeah, that's just real life. Like, so I went to school in Evanston, which wasn't too far from Chicago.
Right. So it's only, what, an hour away or so, something like that?
Like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I was homesick, deeply homesick. But not only was I homesick, but I had a lot of pressure from my family to come back home on the weekends, which so many opinions about that. But like common first-gen experience, if you're not at home, your family's like, why aren't you home? Come home for dinner every night. You're right there. And so I would come home most weekends that first year that I was there. And I would go to the parties that were being thrown here in Chicago by my high school friends. And so yeah, I wouldn't be partying at Northwestern that like first half year. I'd be like here in Chicago. And yeah, I feel like a lot of that dialogue is like pulled from inspiration from my real life, where you were like, oh, you're so fancy. Like, oh, I guess I can't talk to you now. Like, you're so cool. And so there was a lot of that, like, you think you're too good for us now, you know?
Yeah.
So there was that. And then there was like the, like, feeling guilty about like, fuck, I get to go to this school and my friends are all working minimum wage jobs and they have to help support their families or just contribute to the household, or I have some friends that couldn't go to college because of documentation, or they didn't take high school as seriously. And so we got into that age and they got to see what finishing your homework could have gotten them into. And they're kind of like, oh, fuck. And I'm 18 years old, not knowing how to handle these emotions and feeling guilty the whole time. I'm like, damn, I'm having a bad time at school. I don't know how to connect with my high school friends anymore. Like, there's like, I'm unrelatable everywhere I go. And the isolation that came from that was beyond me. Like,
that's perfect, because I grew up Catholic, right? That's just how my parents were raised. And the Catholic guilt of, you're a sinner, so you got to do this and you got to atone and whatever it is. In reality, all you did was be born, right? Essentially.
We all are born sinners,
yes,
right?
we're all born sinners. But I relate that a lot to that first generation guilt, because that's what it is. You feel guilty that you're leaving home, that you're bettering yourself, that you're sacrificing a little bit of yourself to improve the rest of you. And I think it takes a lot of time to process. It took me over 4 years to process that now, right? I remember distinctly my first night that I didn't get home till about 10 o'clock because I had 2 essays, a project due, and stuff that I had to get for my midterm week done, or else I would fail, right? And that first night I got home, my mom was waiting for me. And she's like, why are you here so late? Why didn't you come home? We need the trash taken out. We need this. We need that. And I'm like, Mom, I'm trying. I'm trying really hard.
Yeah.
Try harder.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess. That's helpful, Mom. Thank you. But I mean, no hate to my mom. It's just how she is.
Yeah, they don't know. They were there.
That's the thing. They
Like,
don't know either.
don't know.
They don't understand the pressures that you're into because they've never experienced those type of pressures. My dad, God bless him, his education kind of just stopped once he knew how to read and how to write and how to do math, right? Because for him, it's you do that and then you go work in provincial. And that's kind of what my dad did, right? And then eventually he came over here, he joined a union, got more educated, but he still has that mentality of soy de la rancho, debo ser esto, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Otherwise, if I don't, I'm screwing everybody else over. And it takes a long time to process that you shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty bettering yourself because when you do, all you're doing is not only bettering yourself, but you're bettering your family because you're making them understand and teaching them new things. You're getting yourself more financially stable. So then when you can contribute financially, you can contribute more and you could take care of things better and you could do this and that. But that takes time. And people, if you didn't know, are very impatient. That's just kind of the thing you have to play with, right? So going back into Andromeda, you're talking about this first generation guilt. How does she find out? How does she get rid of that guilt?
Oh, that's literally the premise of the whole series. Like, we've only hit the proof of concept. Like, but yeah, that's like the driving motivation of like what happens in this other world. Is like, how do you start to take off all of the psychological obstacles that you hit when you're trying to cross this socioeconomic class, right? You're trying to move you and your family forward. Like, it's not just getting into the school, doing your homework, getting the right network. It's not just that. It's the mind games, right? It's the imposter syndrome. It's the survivor's guilt. It's the, staying up late, feeling like you have no friends because you don't. Nobody relates to you now. Yeah, it's like a psychological war, really, that you have to get over. And that's only part of it, right? Like, getting into the school is hard. Having enough money to go to school is hard. Like, it's all hard. But this is specifically about like the psychological like thing. And also another thing that I was gonna say is as I was writing this, I did a lot of research about other groups of people that go through this. So something that I find interesting is that I was experiencing this when I was 18. I went to a university where practically nobody had my background. The majority of people around me did not have my background, did not understand where I was coming from, did not understand why I was having the feelings I did. Spoke a different language even, like a whole different way of speaking English. And then, like, come on, I was straight out of public school. Like, I was not...
But it's so true, right?
Yeah, and so I was going through this experience of, like, I'm in a whole new world. I don't even know how to speak the way they speak. I need to catch up. And my mom at 18 was going through the same thing, but as an immigrant from Guatemala. So it's like, there's like a mirror of like, I was kind of going through the same thing with way more privileges. Hell yeah, way more privileges. I was still speaking English. They could still understand me. I was getting my higher education in this prestigious place, but the psychological battles are very similar from like the immigrant experience, at least from like what I've researched, the people I've spoken to, and I've talked to my mom and my family. There's some similarities. The other similarity that I found so fascinating. So it's like when you're passing socioeconomic class, it's like you're going from poverty to middle class to upper middle class, all that stuff. And then when you're crossing cultural barriers, when you're going from country to country. And then there was an installation at Northwestern. I went back to Northwestern to do some like I think I was doing like location scouting, or I was like going back to like pull details from the school and stuff. And there was this installation about slaves that were freed and that came up north and started to have new lives. And they also had those like psychological barriers and the social isolation of like belonging to the gray area and being in this transition space where you're like crossing, you finally made it past like the terrible situation you were in. I'm in this new happy life, but now nobody around me relates to me. Like nobody understands. And there's this one quote there. This guy was like, you know, I kind of want to go back, not go back. He said, I want to pull up the quote right now, but he said something like, better would it have been to at least be around my people and have like community during this experience, but this is like really, really hard. And the way he wrote it, I'm like, that's exactly how I felt with totally different circumstances. But it's that like that feeling of transition that leaves you socially isolated. That's like, you know, horrendous.
Yes. No, I 100% understand, because that's one of the main reasons why Ruidosa is a thing, right?
Yeah.
Ruidosa Art Collective, our main objective is to create a space between us, between literally anybody who wants to join, an area that where they could express themselves, give them the opportunity where they can use that imagination, and give them the opportunity where I've been working on this solo project for so long, and I don't even know if it's good or not, but I kind of want to show it. I kind of don't want to show it. I don't know what to do. Well, here's Ruidosa. We're telling you, hey, we're looking for pieces. We're looking for this. We're looking for that. Show us. Show the people. Show the community. Show that you are not the only one. Because you're not. There's a big isolationist kind of a problem going on.
Totally.
And this is both political that's going on right now. This is generational, right? Technology has become a big issue on this too, because we're living in an age where we're so connected yet so isolated.
Yes.
Yes. I think it was I don't know if it was the CDC or the World Health Organization, where like the number of people depressed in the world has increased by like 10%, something like that. And it's not hard not to imagine, because you kind of get it, right?
Yeah, like we're all going through this now.
Yeah.
All of us. There was another part of my research too, was because when I started writing it, there were more and more research coming out about Gen Z's isolation and depression, and how they, because of computers and such, just spending less face-to-face time, playgrounds are empty, all of that. And I'm like, more social isolation. Like there's something here that's relevant, not just to first gen. Like it's starting to become relevant in a lot of other groups, generations and stuff. Yeah.
But here's my one pushback to technology is all bad. Technology is bad, yeah, but it does do a lot of good stuff, like putting this out into the light, letting more people know about it so they could talk about it. Right? I think back in the 90s, autism, ADHD, those things weren't really believed in.
So true.
They knew it was a thing. They defined it. They can diagnose it, but people just didn't believe in it. So when parents were told about this, about their children, and they're like, no, he just likes to jump around a lot, or he's just movement, deal with it, something like that. And now, years later, decades into the future, we're like, no, this is a huge deal. This is something we have to take seriously. This is something everybody deals with. And a lot of people just don't know. And that's why a lot of people now are going out, getting the proper diagnosis from a psychologist or their doctor or whatever it is. And they're 20 something, 26, 27. And they're like, oh, I'm on the spectrum. Well, that makes sense because when I was 5, I did this. Or when I was 10, I did this. And I didn't really get why, but now I do. Right? And it becomes a giant light bulb where, oh, it's not because of me, right? I'm not like this. My brain is wired like this. So what can I do to rewire my brain? And some people take it well, other people don't. But now we're kind of discovering it, and we're talking about it, and it's becoming a thing where we can make some changes, right? So here's my next proposed question for you. You've gone through college. You've gone through the thing. What can you tell your 18-year-old self that you wish you knew? Advice for her.
Yeah.
Advice for other 18-year-olds that are going through it.
Yeah. My biggest piece of advice would be to... It's a hard piece of advice to accept as an 18-year-old. I know. Like, what's something that I could say that they would actually hear? You know, that they'd actually be like, oh, yeah, okay. But the biggest piece of advice would be to do your best to find the similarities between you and the people that are most different than you. And the purpose of that is to connect, even with folks that may have different backgrounds, may look super different than you, may speak differently than you, may even be mean to you, which did happen. But
I believe it.
Yeah, like I was so focused on the differences that I missed out on a lot of opportunities to connect and to learn and to be open-hearted. And I did get closed off really early being in school, and I wish I could have been open to a more positive experience by just creating more community at Northwestern. And hey, there's like a lot of obstacles, and I can talk until I turn blue about how hard it is to do that as a first gen, but people are people. At the end of the fucking day, people are people, and it's like what kind of energy you bring into the room that they'll most likely mirror back to you. And I was really going through it as an 18-year-old, and I wish that I would have been a little bit just more focused on the fact that I wasn't the only one that was homesick because I was first gen and I was a children of immigrants. Like, we were all fucking homesick. And just because I saw people having a good time didn't mean they didn't go back to their dorm room and feel a way. And that way could have been the same way I was feeling. Because even now as an adult, I mean, I was an adult then, but I'm more of an adult now. But I met this athlete. Oh, this is like an insane experience. I met an athlete from my class at Northwestern. So we were in school at the same time. And he was like a football player. And so we never fucking met. Never met, weren't in the same circles. He's like a white guy from a small town that's like 99% white and da-da-da-da. Totally different backgrounds. We meet, and I'm like, oh, you went to Northwestern? Yeah. What year? Same year. How was your experience? I asked him. And he's like, I was extremely homesick. I was in an environment where I felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't even nearly as good as the other athletes. I didn't get the education I wanted. I wish I connected with people that were different than me. And then he said, I didn't feel prepared for the real world after I left, which is exactly how I felt. I felt exactly those same things. And I wouldn't have given him the chance to tell me his truth when I was 18. And so now that we were late 20s when we met, I was like, fuck. Like, Shit, we could have been besties. We could have been cool when I was there, and we both wouldn't have felt so alone. So I'm like, damn. But yeah, that would be my advice. My 18-year-old self.
That I'm laughing because I would give the same advice.
Oh, really?
Find your people. And when I say find your people, I don't mean find your other Latinos, they'll get you. Yeah, they will. But you won't learn much from them because you're already Latino. You already know your culture, right? There are different cultures in Latinoism which you could learn from, right? But give yourself a chance to explore stuff you don't realize with every day, you don't grapple with. I met a lot of people from Saudi Arabia when I went to Dominican University. Go Stars.
Hey.
But meeting and talking to a lot of them and finding out like their experience through facing a lot of immigrant hate when they first came here, facing like having conceptions of what the U.S. is like, and then finding out like all of those conceptions are wrong. No one's like, sorry, I'm laughing because this is a quote from him. Oh, I thought everybody was going to be like the 1980 movie, Back to the Future. People are going to be like punks and rockers and football players, and everybody's going to have their clique, and everyone's going to stay with their clique forever. And I'm like, nah, man, not at all. That is crazy. People go from clique to clique to clique in a day, let alone their whole life. But it's crazy learning that from someone who just didn't know, right? And when I say find your people, I mean find people you're going to vibe with, that you're going to support with. And they could be from the same culture. They could be from another culture. But give yourself that grace to explore it and see what you can find. See what you like, what you don't like. Learning from different people and from different experiences that you may never have. A good story to add on to this is my final year before COVID kind of messed everything up. I was going to go to China. For
like study abroad?
Not in kind of a study abroad thing, but it was my final year. Mm-hmm. So I kind of didn't really need to study. I was just going abroad because they needed people and I was people. So and I was literally going to go for like, I think the trip was for a month, something like that. And we were going to go from province to province, learn from different professors and different people and just ingrain yourself in the culture. And I thought that was a perfect experience to do, especially as a senior leaving college, going to go out and make a name for yourself, but never really know what to do or how to do it. But this was a great experience because I would have gone, seen other people who are also in my same position and see what they would have done, see what are they going to do. Of course, COVID happened, so that kind of put a snuff on all that. But I do plan on going to China eventually. Going to basically take a tour all over Asia once I have everything calmed down and I have my degrees and I don't have to go to college classes twice a week and write papers and quizzes and stuff. But like going out, getting that experience, internalizing it, and then coming back over here to Ruidosa, to my other communities, and then sharing out what I've learned.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that's what you're doing. You've gone now, right? You've got this great idea of first generation person trying to unravel this guilt, this giant entity going down on them, right? Pushing them down and trying to escape that. But you have that concept, but now you've gone and done the research. You've gone to different experiences. You've made different connections. And now you're writing this piece as a way to teach people, right? Because this is leading to my final question here. What do you want people to get out of this project?
What do I want people to get out of it? The main thing is I want people to have I would want people to create community and conversation and better be able to unravel the identity of being stuck in between two worlds. Mm-hmm. So being stuck in between two worlds is like the essence of being a child of immigrants, and it's also the essence of being a first-generation college student, whether you're Latinx or not. And so to create art with that in mind, to highlight that experience, I think is extremely important. Latinidad, I feel like, has been stuck in this space of like nostalgia and like transition for many, many years, like down to like hundreds of years ago, where like multi-ethnic, like multi-racial, different socioeconomic classes, the way we even get to the United States is different. And so like we're all in this like space of transition with our identity. And so creating this piece of work is about allowing there to be conversation, exploration about that, and also for first gens to have something that they can point to and be like, yo, that's what it's like, like, let me show you this thing. This is what it's like, and then hopefully through any events, we can like bring people together so that we can just not feel alone in it, So
yeah. That's fantastic, because that's exactly how I felt after I read your script. Like, I'm not alone. It's not just me. I'm not the only one going insane. I'm not the only one coming home with a heavy heart and a headache just pounding on your head, It's very, very easy to give up if you think you're just one. Mm-hmm. But when you're two, when you're three, when you're five, when you're 100, when you're 1,000 people strong, and you're talking about these experiences, learning from each other, commiserating together, and then eventually, hopefully, finding some solutions. Find some solutions to problems you may be having. And you can't really get that when you're just one, right? And for that, I say thank you.
Aww.
Because it's a great thing that you're doing, For that, I say thank you. Anything else you want to talk about before we head out of here?
Anything else I want to talk about? Yeah, I just wanted to give many thanks to the Chicago local music and film communities. This is like a huge collaboration between both worlds. Mm-hmm. There's almost every single actor is a musician or like in the music world in some way, you included. And
just underrated him.
And the whole entire crew are so like the majority of the crew is Latinx. We're all like women, POC, queer. Like, I was very intentional about the team I brought on, and I'm just so thankful that this all came together. Very thankful for DKs for providing us a grant to like make this thing happen. So yeah, it was just like a beautiful collaboration between people that all have the same value and mission in mind, which is to elevate stories that aren't shared enough and to elevate artists that, aren't represented enough. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm just like really blessed and so grateful to like lead a project like this at this time. So it's really, really...
as one local to another, I think that's a great damn thing to do. So with that being said, we'll catch you next time to the next episode of El Barrio. Thank you very much, Jax. I'm super excited to have this out. When the next big presentation is going to happen, you know for sure Ruidosa is going to be right there. So thank you very much. With that being said, we'll catch you next time. Bye.